I am sorry if you've been waiting for a movie of mine. It has been a while because my computer was on the fritz. But I got it back and I'm going to try to make something interesting. Now, unfortunately, my computer was dead basically during the time of the American election. So I couldn't make very fast response videos on how Trump won and how Hillary Clinton lost and how basically the progressives are now protesting because, oh my god, what a terrible thing democracy is. Funny enough, none of them complained about Bernie Sanders being shafted by Hillary Clinton. But now that Hillary Clinton lost from Donald Trump or to Donald Trump, suddenly misogyny isn't the only thing. No, no, no. Democracy is just wrong. I feel sorry for Bernie Sanders, to be honest, because he actually got shafted in the same way that Hillary Clinton. No, wait a second. No, he didn't. Trump actually won. He didn't cheat. Clinton, however, yeah, she cheated. But before the election, there was the Young Turks video that I saw, and I really, really needed to respond on that. So that's what I'm going to do. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Teaching kids in elementary school how our government works and what's happening during our election is important.
Yes, teaching our children about the election, especially the ones in America, because it's quite extensive in its weirdness. Yes, that is important. Democracy is something that children need to understand. I'd say adults need to understand it too, but we can't send them back to school, it seems.
Unless you're specifically focusing on today's election.
I'm not really sure what's so special about the election that has just ended. Okay, Trump won, no one expected it at the time, but in all fairness, looking at the way elections have been going in America for the last, let's say, 20 years, it has been more and more about polarizing and less about the issues. So I'm not quite sure what made these current elections so much different than the previous ones, to be honest.
And teachers at Jericho Elementary School learned that the hard way when their students in Long Island, New York, had to basically cancel their mock election because things got a little too negative. Let's take a quick look at a video of one elementary school kid talking about why they canceled it.
When people are getting angry because some people like Trump and some people like Clinton and some people think Clinton's good and some people think Trump's not good. So there's a lot of arguments going on and I don't like that.
Yeah, it's weird when you think about it. I mean, children mimic their parents and the public at general is polarizing as fuck. So now these children are polarizing too. Who'd have thought? But don't you think that teachers should actually try and teach these children why they shouldn't polarize? But no, I guess not having the mock election is a better way. I mean, why would you teach these children anything? That doesn't make sense. I mean, it's not as if it's a school or something.
She's so cute.
Was that freckles for a Halloween costume, or are those
Probably.
real freckles?
I don't think those are real freckles.
Okay,
but
that was amazing.
So instead of addressing the point she makes, you comment on the way she looks. Now I know it's a child, but seriously? What she said actually made sense. Why are you not responding to that? Oh no, but she has cute freckles. Well, it's only a costume thingy, but who cares?
The principal, Glenn Rogers, said the school's teachers decided to do away with the mock election when students started bringing up things about minorities in the cafeteria or argue in ways inappropriate for school, okay?
Okay, this is the most stupid thing about this whole story, to be honest. Principal Glenn Rogers said the school teachers decided to do away with the mock election when students started bringing up things about minorities. Can't be vaguer than that, obviously. In the cafeteria and arguing in ways inappropriate for schools. I mean, it's not as if school could then use that to teach them to do it in the right way. No, you do it in the wrong way, therefore we stop. But they're kids. They need to be educated to do it in the right way. And things about minorities. What things about minorities? I mean, there are plenty of things that could actually be said. None of them have to be racist, but they can be addressed. But instead of actually answering the questions these kids have and addressing the points they want to make, or addressing the questions that they have, you are telling them, no, this is a subject you're not allowed to ask about. This is a subject you're not allowed to talk about. If you think this way, you are wrong. Therefore, we need to stop you and silence you. This is how you create dissidents. Don't you understand this? You're a school. Teach, for fuck's sake.
Now, here's the good news though. Since it is important for students to know how elections work, they're still going to hold an election, but they are going to vote on their favorite lunch foods. And that means that they'll be given a choice between bagel with yogurt, which sounds terrible.
Right?
That is a weird combination. Chicken nuggets, which sound pretty good. Mozzarella sticks, or home-brought lunch.
You got to go mozzarella sticks. I mean, how do you even? This is not a fair contest. This election is rigged. It's got to be mozzarella sticks, right? I know. I even think that the bagel with yogurt has
Sarabies! Well, that's a nice little bit of canned laughter there. But basically you're showing the problem. You think it has to be mozzarella sticks. Everything else is, oh no. This is the same thing that we have when we talk about whether it should be Hillary or Trump, or at least when they talked about it. It doesn't matter. The whole idea about an election is that you can have your choice. You might like mozzarella sticks. I might like the bagels. You disagree with me. You've already shown you disagreed with me. Therefore, I'm a deplorable being. Well, people won't say that when it comes to food stuff, I assume. But the principle is still the same. You feel that you are right. Therefore, your choice is the best, and everyone has to accept that. This is the same problem that these kids are facing when they're talking about whether they should vote for Hillary, Trump, Stein, or what's the fourth guy. Don't you see that this is the issue? And you make a joke, and during that joke you show why they can't have a fake election about something serious, because even if it's not serious, you are still pushing your own narrative that, well, it has to be this. And you do it as a joke, but you do it in real life too. You do it about the whole Hillary thing too. This is the issue. This is what needs to be addressed. But instead, we start a joke election nobody really cares about. Because, hey, there's no better way to teach democracy than to tell people it doesn't really make a difference anyway. Who cares? Well done.
Bagel with yogurt is the worst one on that list. I'd go with chicken nuggets. I like to have a little protein. I know that cheese has protein, but mozzarella sticks don't really appeal to me.
I like how we're having a legitimate conversation.
Yeah.
About this. Okay,
I feel like it's a little more substantive than a current election.
I know, right? Okay, but let's get serious here. So some of the kids who were supporting Trump were yelling, Trump, 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 Trump. Okay, all right. Like, I would minus points. That's how I do. I do minus some plus points with my kids. For even saying something as obnoxious as Trump, 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 Trump. I would consider that almost a curse word. But that's why we have an issue, right? Because some of the parents are supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And so to them, like, what do you mean? Hey, don't stop our kids from saying Trump, Trump, Trump. That's great. But then the kids would also say about how we've got to ban Muslims. But then there are Muslim kids, and there's minority kids. So now the parents can say, what, I just taught my kids what my favorite candidate who has a 50-50 chance almost at this point of becoming president is saying, ban the Muslims and ban the Mexicans. Now, but you can't have that in elementary school because it's clearly discriminatory. You can't teach kids the thing that the president of the United States thinks if he wins. And he's this close to winning.
Do you not recognize how you are advocating for censorship here? You cannot say these things because reasons. No, they should be allowed to say these things so you can argue these things. But silencing these things, I mean, that's the best way to make sure that you will have an undercurrent of people who feel this way but will not talk about it. You need to address these issues. You need to talk to them about, okay, so what's the problem with immigrants? What's the problem with Muslims? Are there problems with Muslims? Well, he says this and this and this. Okay, is it true? Let's look at what reality shows us. But no, you rather silence it. You take away the one thing that people need. Free speech. It's what made America great. It's what made the Western world great. It came from America. I mean, there were free speech ideas in Europe for a long time, but it first really materialized in America. And here you are advocating against it because some feelings may get hurt. Don't you understand what you're doing? This isn't a joke. This isn't, well, they're on the school shouting Trump, 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 Trump. Well, I would give negative things for something like that. No, because you're taking away people's right to express themselves. And you may disagree with that expression. Fair enough. Then argue the points. Don't just take away their right to do it. Because if that would happen to you, trust me, you would not like it either.
Tied in the national polling. At most, she has a 1 to 2 point lead. That's within the margin of error. Okay, we're 5 days from an election. So if he wins, then does that become legitimized? And in elementary schools, what do? We stop teaching that you should be tolerant of other races, religions, etc. Because, I mean, we're being caught in a weird situation where the teachers say, hey, be nice to everybody. But the president says, no, don't be nice to everybody. Hate these groups, or discriminate against them, or profile them, or kick them out of the country. And now you've got a big chunk of the country who agrees and who teaches their kids, yeah, you should kick the Mexicans out. You should make sure the Muslims don't come in. Picking on a Muslim student, well, you should do that.
I'm sorry, Cenk, but you don't understand. No, you should not stop teaching that we need to be tolerant for other religions and ethnic groups, just as they need to be tolerant towards us. And if they are not tolerant towards us, we also need to address that. So, yeah, are you supposed to be tolerant towards Muslims on average? Yes, you are. But at the same time, is there a rational fear for certain Muslims? Yes, there is. Have you actually read the Quran? I know you come from Turkey and I know you come from a Muslim background, but have you actually read the Quran? There are some serious, heinous things in there. And he didn't say Muslims aren't welcome anymore. He said we need to vet better. Do you disagree? And don't get me wrong, I don't think all Muslims are terrorists. But out of, let's say, all of them, there is a chance that 5% of them are terrorists. Worldwide, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is true in America, this is true worldwide. I mean, have you forgotten 9/11? This was done by Muslims that were in America. So there is a reasonable fear in this. It should be addressed. Does that mean we should block or ban all Muslims? No, of course not. But we need to talk about it. What you're doing now is saying, well, you're not allowed to talk about it. But because you're not talking about it, you're breeding hatred. Because people who feel these fears also feel that they're not allowed to talk about it. But it doesn't take away the fears. You need to address these things. But you rather keep it silent? Why?
Well, I think you touched on something really important, because whether or not Trump exists, those same parents are having these conversations at the dinner table about how the others are so terrible. The blacks are so dangerous. The Mexicans are all entering the country illegally and they're all criminals and rapists. Like, these types of conversations happen in some households regardless. And now there is a presidential candidate who makes them feel bold enough to say these things even more aggressively, out in the open, overtly. And so I worry about that too. I mean, racist people are always going to exist in this country, regardless of what we do. I mean, we need a system that tries to minimize or completely get rid of that impact, on minority communities. But at the same time, hateful people are going to remain hateful. They're still going to exist.
I'm sorry, Anna. Do you understand what you're saying? Basically, you're saying racism has always been there. Racism is a problem. And to fight racism, we're going to ignore it. We're going to silence people that are racist. But that breeds racism. That never worked. Why are you trying this? Why are you advocating in favor of this? Because, I'm sorry, you, or at least this stance, is a problem. No, it's not a problem. It's the problem.
But when they get legitimized, then we've got a real issue.
Yes.
Because part of the reason that they are always obsessed with, like, oh, the schools are teaching our kids propaganda. Well, no, the schools teach your kids to be decent human beings who respect everybody. But some portion of the country doesn't want that. They don't think that other people should be respected. They think that they are above those people and that they should act like that.
And the irony in this is that you do not recognize that you're basically describing yourself. Because you don't agree with what people say when they follow Trump, and therefore they are wrong, they need to be silenced. It's the same thing. It's just the other side of the medal, but it's the same fucking behavior. Why are you so blind to this? Because silencing other people, being negative about other people is bad. Unless we do it, because we're on the right side of history. No, you're not. It's bad on both sides. Don't you get this? Seriously.
So when you then say, no, the schools, you're not going to teach kids to be decent people anymore, well, then we've got a problem that is much, much larger than just one political candidate.
As long as we teach our children how to think about other people, we have a problem. They should be able to think for themselves. And we should teach them how to think in a right way. We shouldn't teach them to take over our views. Because that, my friend, is authoritarian. That's not progressive. That's not liberal. That's not free thinking. You have to agree with this viewpoint, and if you do not agree with this viewpoint, you need to be silenced because you're wrong. And because you're wrong, I shouldn't be forced to hear you. Don't you understand what you're doing? You're forcing people to go underground, and then whenever people go underground, in the end, something bad happens. Those who will block peaceful revolution force an aggressive revolution. I know I butchered the quote, but you get the drift. And it's really upsetting to me to hear people talk like this, because you're part of the problem. No, I'm sorry, you're not part of the problem, but you are the problem. Because you're silencing people who disagree with you or who you disagree with. Basically, you're both doing the same thing. We need to be all sitting around the table and talking about this shit. We do not need to agree with each other, but we need to talk with each other. And you don't want that to happen. Don't you understand that this is basically the death knell your country is in at the moment? And not just your country, we see this in Europe as well. You're not allowed to talk about the terrible things happening with the crime being committed by Muslims in Rochester, England, by the refugees in Germany. Not all of them, of course not all of them, but you're not allowed to address the problems that are there. And then you have politicians that say, well, terrorism is now a thing in Europe, we have to get used to it. How? Why? I mean, are we actually saying, okay, well, there are bad things, but that's okay? I don't get this, and you're advocating for this. This is why people like Trump are gaining momentum. This is why the Brexit happened, because people feel they are being ignored by their own politicians, by their own media. Cenk, I looked up to you, well, a few years ago, because you brought a new noise, but now you just follow the narrative. Why? Seriously, why? Anyway, I've done enough ranting. I'm going to basically stop this one here. So like, share, subscribe if you feel inclined to. And criticism, as always, is more than welcome. So if you have something to say to me, whether you agree or disagree with me and why, I am very curious to hear from you. Oh, and by the way, yes, I know Trump won the election. Personally, I don't really care. I'm glad it wasn't Hillary Clinton because, well, I mean, Trump is an idiot, but Clinton is actually a criminal. I never understood why all those women that felt that, waha, we need a feminist in the House, voted for Clinton. I mean, if there is one thing she is not, it's a feminist. But she's a woman, I'll grant you that. But then again, so is Jill Stein. And she actually had a few very good ideas, in my humble opinion. Some pretty outlandish ones as well. But I'm sorry, I'm digressing. Like, share, subscribe if you feel inclined. And see you all next time.